Good evening. My name is Willie Poinsett, and I'm a founder of Respond to Racism. And I want to thank you. Thank you for joining tonight. I know the Blazers are playing, so some people may be at the game in person or at the game at home. But anyway, thank you for being here. Ah, we have all kinds of crazy stuff happening right now as we think about um, the killings that we've had, the violence all over this country, and good old COVID. But I saw a little twinkle. Probably I was the only one that saw the twinkle, but like you have a twinkle in your eye, a little twinkle that said there's a brighter day coming and that we will get through this. This was a good trial for us, but slowly but surely we're getting so that we can be close to somebody other than the person that you live with. And you can see someone else, you can talk to someone, and I urge you to do that. Don't just be alone with this COVID. And before I rattle on, we're coming to the end of the year, and I have to put my little plea out. As people think about the little extra money that you may have, that you want to share with someone, I will tell you that Respond to Racism would love to have it. So if you have some, the end of the year, please plan on giving us a little bit if you don't mind. And if you don't have it now, for next year, I urge you,
Here, and you go to view.
you know,
to okay, and then you go to gallery.
You're not muted, Ed.
Can you mute Ed?
Anyway, I urge you next year to just give a little. And while I'm saying that, I am so appreciative of the many people who donate all year long, sometimes in the lump sum, sometimes monthly, and it's all good. You're helping us to help us bring the programs. Some of our programs cost us a lot to bring them, and we are doing it. We're doing it so we can educate the people here and so that we can make our town and Oregon and whoever is on here from someplace else. You know, racism is all over the country, so you want to make yourself, your place, or your place where you live, a better place. So with that, before I go on to Corona, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to have our land acknowledgement.
Hi everyone, my name is Karuna. So today I would like to honor the people whose lands we live on, the Molalla, the Cayuse, the Tualatin Kalapuya, the Willamette Tumwater, the Wasco Wishram, the Clackamas Chinook, and the other Chinook people of the Willamette area. We acknowledge them as the original inhabitants of the land and recognize we are there because of the sacrifices forced upon them. Land acknowledgements are nothing more than just explanations, name-checking the tribes and Native nations whose lands we occupy. These statements help demonstrate respect for and awareness of the enduring relationship between Indigenous peoples and place. Acknowledgements do not only exist in a past tense or historical context. Colonialism is a current, ongoing process, and it behooves us to speak and build an understanding of our present participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Karuna. I have my mixed feelings. There, the trial for Ahmaud Arbery, the outcome of the trial gave us, or many of us, hope that something is going to happen to make a change with us. I'm sorry so much, very sorry that we had to give a life. We had to give Ahmaud Arbery's life so that now we can be walking down the streets. Hopefully, people got the message with that the people who shot him, what happened with the outcome of that trial. But I don't want to give up another life. I don't want to give up another life. And the guns, I don't know about you, but in my email, every day I get some email about a gun, or about a holster to put it in. And I was like, what is going on in this world, in our country? Why are we so fixated on guns and using violence? That is not good. So hold our country in your thoughts, that we will weather this storm and get out of it without having to give up lives. We also had some people that we lost, natural death. Virgil Abloh, the wife of Clarence Abbott, for a home invasion, and Lee Elder, the first golfer, black golfer, to play in the Augusta Masters. I had to make that my correction. And so I know there are others to celebrate. Let us celebrate each other and give us the strength that we need, the courage, the feeling, the belonging, because it's hard to be alone and in the house for days. And so we want to do some things that will brighten up a day for someone. Before we begin, I just want to, for the program, I want to go over our meeting goals and our mission. We started 4.5 years ago in July of 2017, and we are here to educate and empower Lake Oswego residents and the institutions with the tools to combat racism in all its form and make Lake Oswego and Oregon a better place to live for residents of all races and ethnicities. I have to say that was our mission when we started out, because we were focusing on our town. Our work has been so powerful that people from other towns and cities have been coming and trying to model something after ours. So this is going to be, we were just the catalyst here to get it rolling. Our agreements for this is our community meeting, that we will have different perspectives, but we will treat each other with respect and civility. We ask that you speak from your own experience, your personal experience, that you listen with full presence and be open to learning. When we go into groups and people share their personal stories, we ask that you not share it unless you have gotten explicit permission from the person to share it. And so please don't talk about it, someone else's story. Assume good intent, ask clarifying questions, and challenge biases. When the conversation gets uncomfortable,
Willie, you're muted.
Sorry about that. When the conversation gets uncomfortable and you feel an ouch, take care of yourself when you feel the pain. When you say, oops, apologize when you have caused pain. Respect our guest speakers as they are generously sharing their knowledge and personal experience. And we've had some great speakers and presenters. Our expected oh, by the way, the chat feature will be disabled during presentations. Our expected outcomes, you'll get acquainted with who's on this call or in the room, wanting to respond to racism. You won't leave with the answer of how to fix racism or interrupt it or end it in 2 hours. That's not happening. But you'll get some tools to begin to dismantle it. You'll leave the meeting with more questions than you came with, and that's a good thing. But we ask that you take away one actionable item. At the end of the meeting, we'll be asking you to please plan on doing one thing. And you'll have more ideas of how.
Willie, you're muted.
You're muted, Willie.
Sorry about that. It's time for our first poll. John, you want to put it up? Our first poll, how many Respond to Racism community meetings have you attended in the last 12 months? If this is your first meeting, welcome. Come back again and just fill that poll out for us, please. Are we mostly in? Finished? We can go on to the second poll. Last month at our community meeting, we heard a student panel, and we had students from Newburgh and some of our Lake Oswego students. They did an awesome job of talking about racism and how it's impacting them as school students. And it was phenomenal. But having heard the students, were you, after hearing them, compelled to write a letter to the school board or take similar action, some action? So do a yes or no. And you should be finished. We have so many people to thank. This program, this meeting, has to have help. And Catherine Phelps has been the one leading our story time, and it is so much fun to watch the little ones when they're reading the stories and the friends that they're making of people that they get to see. And so, and today they had a special guest, Sarah Al-Kiram, and she is a freshman at Lake Oswego High School. And she read a really great book. And I think they were able to give 2 books out to the people that were attending. And I want to thank the students again for the awesome job with the panel and explaining to us how it is in their lives in school and what could happen right here in Lake Oswego. But I hope, will be ready to fight it. Kim V told, oh my goodness, she is an awesome moderator, and she did an excellent job last month. And so we thank her for her tireless commitment and her service. Want to thank our donors. Thank you again. Thank our volunteers, our students, our Youth Empowerment Committee, the adults that helped to put things together, and that is leadership, planning committees, facilitators, the policing committees, the protesters, people who do silent walks, people who write letters to the city council, people who serve or volunteer on boards and commissions for the city. Thank you so much, because you are making a difference and with moving Lake Oswego along. And now I want to introduce someone. Well, actually, someone's. One of our board members, and she will be embarrassed if they find her and put her on there she goes. This is May Kadem, and she is one of our board of directors. But today, or this evening, we have the honor of having her daughter, Arya Badiyan. I just messed up her name, and I'm so sorry. Arya is an award-winning artist, poet, and entrepreneur. Her work explores new ideas, narratives, and systems that shift the consciousness. Her most recent body of work explores the theme of emancipation in the light of American founding values. The purpose of this work is to facilitate healing from the diseases of racism, sexism, and American exceptionalism. I am honored tonight to present Arya, and I'm not going to try again on the screen, but I'm going to get it right the next time.
Oh, you did great.
Okay, but this is Arya, and she's a fantastic artist. And so you might share with them where they can see some of your work too.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and it's all yours.
All right. Thank you. It's a real honor to be here, especially at Respond to Racism. This is actually the first time I've been able to show my work locally in my own town of Lake Oswego. And I'm very honored that that opportunity has come through Respond to Racism, because the passion that really animates my work is healing and healing the disease of racism. And so it's a real gift to be able to join you and share this work with you. As I was consulting with the organizers, and we know that you have these very productive breakout sessions, we thought we would do something a little bit different. I will walk you through my work, but first we're going to actually start with a breakout. And I'm going to show two of my pieces without really giving any context and not really talking about them, but letting you just respond to the art, take it in, and then there'll be a very short 10-minute or so breakout session where you'll have a chance to dialogue about it. And then we'll come back and I will give some background and history of how those works were inspired and what they're about. So for the next few minutes, I'm just going to put up this art, two pieces, and can you see that? Is it working? Yeah. This is the first one. And the second one. Okay, I don't know if the breakout rooms are ready, but yep, here we go. Wonderful. See you in about 10 minutes. Wonderful. So we'll have a chance at the end to have some questions and answers and discussion. And I'm curious in particular to hear if your perspective on the pieces shifts at all as you hear their background, or what inspired their creation. So I'm going to start with the series that's called Destiny, and it's really about the concept of the destiny of America, the destiny of this country, and the concept of manifest destiny, and how we might look at that from a fresh perspective in light of the stains that have stained that, what can be seen from one perspective as a noble ideal, and how we reconcile that noble ideal with the true history of our nation. This piece is called Hindsight Is 2020. And as that land acknowledgement was begun at the beginning of this meeting, we know that if we look at the history of this nation with the eyes of truth, and differently than the way most of us were educated in our school system, we actually occupy sovereign land, sovereign national land. And this piece documents the Treaty of Fort Laramie, the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota people who lived in these 8 states, which are now 8 states in the Midwest. Their territory was marked on the left by the first Treaty of Fort Laramie in 1851, which delineated the boundaries of their land that would be sovereign and free of the new settlers. And as the settlers moved west and gold was discovered and that land was desirable, that area kept getting smaller and smaller. And little by little, that original legal treaty was violated. In that second picture in the middle, you see the revised treaty in 1868 that has encroached upon those lands. And this treaty is the one that is currently in effect at this moment. However, you can see on the far right the current reservations that exist on that land. And it was delineated in 1868 that the sacred Black Hills, which are burial grounds and sacred land of the Lakota people, would belong to the Lakota in perpetuity. And those are now occupied territory and really have been desecrated by the monument of Mount Rushmore. And essentially, this is a sovereign nation whose land is occupied territory. And it's important to acknowledge that. This is just the story of the Lakota that I've had the privilege of working with, but this story is repeated for every tribal nation in this country. And all that's left after these treaties, the territory, now as we can look back with 2020 vision, is terror. This piece is called Manifest Destiny. It is a portrait of Zenkala Oyate, Peter Ketches, who is a 38th generation Lakota medicine man. He was the last in an unbroken chain of medicine men, spiritual leaders of the Lakota people on Pine Ridge Reservation. He's a survivor of the residential schools. And with this piece, I know his family, and his story had a very personal impact on me. And so I started working on this portrait, and without an idea of what would be pictured behind him. And this image just kept coming to me of this background. And to be honest, I had a lot of trepidation in even entertaining it, let alone consulting with the family about it. And but I look at a lot of my work as in a sense political from the standpoint of the assertion it's making, but not taking sides, not partisan, really as a way to build bridges between the factions that have formed in this country. And so the question, this imagery has been used as a weapon. So the question I ask myself is, well, what would it take to make that true? Was there a time where America was great? And what would it look like to make America great again? And, the Lakota have this beautiful teaching, Mitakwe Oyasin, which means we are all related, we are all one. And they embody that knowledge of oneness. In fact, view the white man as their younger brother. They're young and misguided younger brother, but the four-leggeds, the two-leggeds, the trees, and all of humanity are brothers and sisters. And so they are our true ancestors. They are the ancestors of everyone that calls themselves an American. And so the answer to this destiny, this achieving again the greatness of this country, is only attainable if we go back to those teachings and that knowledge and that wisdom, and to our ancestors, the Native Americans. A lot of the work I do are portraits and really honoring the great heroes of this nation. This is Nicholas Black Elk, whose book Black Elk Speaks has inspired many. He was also a medicine man of the Oglala Lakota people. And he fought alongside his cousin Crazy Horse in the Battle of Little Bighorn and survived the Wounded Knee Massacre. This word wisdom is one of the 12 teachings of the spiritual teacher of the Lakota people, White Buffalo Caffleman. And Nicholas Black Elk really brought that teaching to life with his life. He said, the first peace, which is the most important, is that which comes within the souls of people when they realize their relationship, their oneness with the universe and all its powers. And when they realize that at the center of the universe dwells Wakantaka, the great spirit. And this center is really everywhere. It is within each of us. This is the real peace, and the others are but reflections of this. There can never be peace between nations until there is known that true peace which is within the souls of men. This is a portrait of Crazy Horse. Bravery is one of those 12 virtues that were sacred to the Lakota people. He was a resistance fighter and defended his people from illegal land encroachment. He said, "The red nation shall rise again, and it shall be a blessing for a sick world, a world filled with broken promises, selfishness and separations, a world longing for light again. I see a time of 7 generations when all the colors of mankind will gather under the sacred tree of life, and the whole earth will become one circle again. In that day, there will be those among the Lakota who will carry knowledge and understanding of unity among all living things, and the young white ones will come to those of my people and ask for this wisdom." This is the day, actually, of the 7th generation from Crazy Horse. This next series is called Liberty, and it's really about this notion of this American value of liberty, and what is it, and how do we find it, and so for me, this came to life with this first image, which sort of, who knows where art comes from, but this was definitely, I woke up knowing that there was something that was going to come to me that day. And I saw this image, and then I started to paint it. And actually, this is, for me as an artist, was a great confirmation, because I was very inspired as I was painting this. It's called Liberty, Enlightening the World. And it wasn't until I started working on it and showing a few of my friends that I began to discover a story, the real story of the Statue of Liberty. So for me, I was just thinking about, this was after the George Floyd murder, and I was really wrestling inside with what can I do? I didn't think of art as the solution, but it just, because that's something that is a way for me to work through and process strong emotion, that became my vehicle of my own healing. And I felt I didn't want to give in to despondency and hopelessness. And so, I felt like there's an answer here. There's an answer to the pain. And that answer is really, for me, in looking to my African-American sisters who have, in my spiritual teaching, there is this saying that the Black people are the pupil of the eye of humanity. So if you think of all of humanity as one human body, the fount that allows light in and allows the body of humanity to see, that is the Black race. And so they're our vision. They're the key to us not being blind as a society. And so for me, Lady Liberty, was this beautiful Black woman who could see where we were headed and how we could get to that promised land, that lofty ideal that we declare as a nation. We are the people. We know when that was written, the Black and Indigenous people were not included as people. And so here you have Lady Liberty standing before the millions and millions of Black lives whose lives have been cut short, murdered, lynched, sacrificed on this land. But the power and vision and life force is not lost. It is what will bring us through to heal this nation when we turn to our Black and brown brothers and sisters to lead the way. So the serendipity of this is I later found out that actually there is a story about the Statue of Liberty that has to do with emancipation. And so this next piece I did as I learned that story, to really retell history. And the true history of the Statue of Liberty, which was officially just corrected at the Liberty Museum in 2019, thanks in part to Dr. Joy DeGruy, who unearthed this and really went on a campaign to make sure the true story was told, is that the statue was a gift from France to the United States to mark the emancipation of the slaves. And in the original design, the statue was holding broken chains. And later, as with all things related to African-American history in this country, that message was obscured. The chains were put at her feet where they're not visible from any perspective except aerially. And the story of immigration was attached to the statue, even though Ellis Island was only open for immigration many years after the statue was erected. So I've called this piece Juneteenth to mark the day that the Black community has latched onto as a day of celebration of the emancipation of slaves. That was in 1865 when federal agents went into Galveston, Texas to enforce the new law years after it had already been declared. And this is another depiction of the Black Lady Liberty, one that you had a chance to talk about in your breakout. This is inspired by the piece Liberty Leading the People, the Delacroix painting about the French Revolution. And here I have Lady Liberty mounting sort of the proverbial mountaintop where Dr. King talked about, seeing the promised land, and she sees the promised land. She sees the potential of this country and where we can go as a nation. And behind her, the words, the Declaration of Independence, are edited to again diffuse another one of these statements that some people have weaponized, but putting it in the context of our Declaration of Independence. How can we deny this? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that Black lives matter, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. I'm going to share a couple more of these portraits that I've done. All of these pieces here that you see are in the public domain, can be used, printed, mixed up, whatever people want to do for educators and activists. This is Miss Rosa Parks. She, we all know her role as an activist in the civil rights movement, playing a pivotal role in the Montgomery bus boycott. And she said, to me, she's the embodiment of strength. She said, "I would like to be known as a person who is concerned about freedom and equality and justice and prosperity for all people." We know her today as the mother of the civil rights movement. Her nonviolent resistance set off a series of events that changed the world. When she spoke of her refusal to move to the back of the bus because of the color of her skin, she said, "When I made that decision, I knew that I had the strengths of my ancestors with me." This is Harriet Tubman, and she was responsible for rescuing over 70 slaves. The words behind her are her words: "I was the conductor of the Underground Railroad for 8 years. And I can say what most conductors can't say. I never ran my train off the track, and I never lost a passenger." I've heard their groans and sighs and seen their tears, and I would give every drop of blood in my veins to free them. This is the story of Nat Turner. He led the most effective slave rebellion in American history. In our history books, unfortunately, he's often villainized. And but to truly, because deaths were involved in that rebellion. When we look at what he was facing in his life and how to kind of bring his story to life, I think it's illustrative to go back to the will of the slave owner who owned Nat Turner, and to look at what it said in that will. The will of Benjamin Turner, October 14th, 1810. In the name of God, amen. I, Benjamin Turner, of the county of Southampton and parish of St. Luke's, being in sound mind and memory, do make this my last will and testament in manner and form following. First and principally, I bequeath my soul to Almighty God who gave it to me, and for the worldly goods that I possess, I dispose of them as follows. Item first, I give and bequeath unto my loving wife, Elizabeth Turner, 1 Negro woman nanny, 6 cows and calves, 1 grindstone, a pair of chair wheels, 1 horse, hard money, 2 feather beds and furniture. I also leave to my wife, Elizabeth Turner, deserving the following property: 1 Negro manslave, Abraham, Bridget, and Sylvie. Item second, I give and bequeath unto my loving son, Samuel Turner, the following Negroes: Sam, Nat, Lida, Nancy, Drew, Dane Minor, Alec, which he has got in his possession, to him and his heirs forever. In retaliation for that insurrection, hundreds of slaves were executed. Laws were passed prohibiting the education of Black people and further restricting the rights of assembly. Turner was hanged. His body was skinned and dismembered, used to make souvenirs, such as purses and trophies. And here we have Emmett Till, 14-year-old Emmett Lewis Till was lynched in Money, Mississippi for allegedly whistling at a white woman. 4 months later, when Rosa Parks was asked to move to the back of the bus, she thought of Emmett Till. In the background are the final words of civil rights leader Representative John Lewis. Though I am gone, I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. After many years of silent witness, the truth is still marching on. Emmett Till was my George Floyd. He was my Rayshard Brooks, Sandra Bland, and Breonna Taylor. You must also study and learn the lessons of history, because humanity has been involved in this soul-wrenching existential struggle for a very long time. So I say to you, walk with the wind, brothers and sisters, and let the spirit of peace and the power of everlasting love be your guide. I'd like to close my presentation, the formal part of my presentation tonight, with a moment of silence. These are some of the portraits I've done honoring those who have been killed by police violence. It happens too often. There's too many to count. And I always think about how to honor them, and this amazing work that is being done here with Respond to Racism is the kind of work that honors their lives. So if we can please just take a moment of silence. Thank you so much. I think I maybe ended a little bit earlier than anticipated, but it would be really amazing to have discussion and dialogue about how art can be a pathway to healing and mending some of these ills, and how it can be a means to bring people together. I don't know if any of the facilitators of the breakout rooms have any reflections on what people shared during that breakout, but that might be an interesting way to begin a conversation.
Sure, I can share a little bit. I was one of the facilitators, and talking about the first picture that we saw of Made America Great Again. Everybody wished they had a little bit more time to look at those pictures, but a general overall feeling from most everybody in the group was that the initial feeling was that it made people feel sad, sick, disappointed. It was recalling terrible times of the 4 years that we went through. And one person said that then the portrait made me smile. How can we take that and have it go in a different direction? And I don't know if you intended this or not, but I had noticed that when you said the words in the back, "Make America Great Again," eventually down on the right-hand side, instead of again, the word was gain. And I thought, well, so what are we gaining from this horrible time? And maybe it's that yin and the yang piece of it, that hard times often can bring us into better times, can motivate us to, we have to do something about this. So those were the thoughts on that first piece. And the second piece was so detailed. Everybody was like, oh, there's so much detail in it, but a lot of people noticed the broken shackles. And on the left-hand side, it almost looked like with that, which I think maybe was a broken shackle, but it almost looked like it had like 3 curves in it that was almost like one of the sails from like the Mayflower or something. I don't know if that was intended or not, but one of the one of the slave ships was the other question that maybe that was. So we were curious as to if that represented something.
Thank you for sharing. Not intentionally, but I'll have to look back at that. It's interesting how those people see things in. Yeah, and that those 2 pieces are probably the most triggering of my work for different people. And you can imagine each one is probably triggering for a different group. And but what's been really interesting is the conversations I've had with people about that. And I think it's this juxtaposition. So for the one with the flag and this statement, Black Lives Matter, there's this juxtaposition of an overt patriotism and proudly hoisting the flag, and within the context of a statement that's explicit, that who's hoisting the flag and whose lives are we defending and exalting here. And so it's interesting because I found that people who feel very patriotic while initially they might have some questions that they've like wanted to talk to me about, have come to really like that piece, because if that's for them, America is something that to be proud of, and to see a Black woman proud of America actually ties into this positive feeling. And on the other hand, the other piece, there are a lot of people for whom that the imagery "Make America Great Again" is very painful, and so a desire to almost make that okay feels wrong to some people, you know. However, there is a way to make it okay, which is embracing the fact that the greatness of this country has been witnessed for thousands and thousands of years by the indigenous people of this land. So if we are going to make that claim, what would it take to make it true? And we have to turn to our indigenous ancestors. And it's interesting because I did mention that I had some trepidation in painting that. His family absolutely loved. I mean, I told them the concept before I executed. They knew I was working on his portrait. And they're like, "Can we get t-shirts?" And oh, Peter would have loved that. It's exactly what he would have wanted. So it was really interesting because, it was my own. I realized, in a sense, my own negative feelings were getting in the way of painting what was wanting to come through me. So I don't know if I'm facilitating, but I just will. Chris, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, thank you. Such beautiful work. It reminded me, when I've seen things like this, a Baha'i quote that says, "How great the multitude of truths which the garment of words can never contain." And it made me think of when there's a symbol, when there is an image in our mind, we say, what is it saying? What is it expressing? What is it trying to tell me? What is this image, this symbol? What am I supposed to get from this? And it's more than we could express in words. And so that image, how great the multitude of truths which the garment of words can never contain. So that's what it made me think of with especially the liberty one. It's like, oh, saying so much. Beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, there's something that art just like, it cuts through words and kind of goes straight in. I'm so glad that this art has done that for you. Thank you. Don't be afraid to for me, I don't look at my artwork the way a traditional artist might. For me, I feel very detached from it, in that it doesn't bother me if people are critical of it, or it stirs them up, or I see it. The purpose of it really is to facilitate that kind of conversation. And so you can just treat me as a regular participant and feel free to speak your mind and heart. I really won't take it personally. Terry.
Thank you. We had a small group, and we spent most of our time talking about this first piece, Making America Great Again and Again and Again and Again and Again. And what we talked about was that we as America never seem to get it right. We keep trying to do Band-Aids and throw crumbs and, try and sort of fix things, but not really look at what is equitable, what is just, what is due. And we spent quite a bit of time talking about that, and how if we could just get there, how we have to keep working at it. If we could just get there and get there in a very authentic way and an honest way, instead of getting there in a, where's the next Band-Aid way.
Mm.
But Jan, I like your positive, your positive touch there with seeing the gain on the right side. So, oh gosh. But thank you for sharing your work with us.
Well, thank you. Annie. You're muted, Annie.
Thank you so much for being here this evening and sharing your work. Just to answer your question about conversations, I think you were talking about the juxtaposition, and the word that was coming through my mind in our conversation was that cognitive dissonance that one experienced when seeing a flag that has been used in so many different ways, and as one participant said, to mean so many different things depending on what one experiences in terms of injustices in this country. So just kind of the jarring experience of seeing the flag, especially as it's flown around trucks these days, and oath keepers, and to see it in the hand of this powerful Black woman. So that was one piece. And also when you were wondering about how a piece was looked at before and then after, you had shared more details with us. And I think one piece that came through on both ends was the kindred spirit between the intentions of the Declaration, or the potential of the Declaration of Independence, and Black Lives Matters. That was a really lovely connection to see. And then the other piece I would add is just the conversation around sitting with the discomfort that comes up when looking at the work that you presented in terms of just the pain.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's interesting what happens when you can sit with that discomfort. And sort of my litmus test in my work, because there are times where I'm tempted, like sometimes I'm angry and I want to paint something, but I don't go to paint for that. Like I really, my litmus test is this medicine? I've learned a lot from the medicine men of Lakota people, and I just ask, is this medicine? Is the discomfort that's coming out through this something that it will ultimately be a balm for someone, or does it potentially feed the wound, feed the anger? And sometimes medicine, may sting first before, and who knows, I'm actually, one of the things I think I'd like to make explicit to this group is I take my marching orders from the Black and Indigenous communities. They really are, my boss. And so sometimes it's hard to, because, you can't really, no one person is representative of a whole group, but I do have a process of consulting with people that I really have come to understand the intention of my work, and that I trust, and nothing for me, none of my art is sacred in that way. So if it didn't serve that purpose, nobody would see it, and I'd paint over it, and I'm learning. So I certainly, not everything I've done has that same power, but that's sort of my learning process, is to say, is this something that will ultimately heal and be a medicine? But it can be uncomfortable.
May has her hand up.
May.
Well, I want to congratulate you, Arya, but And yes, Willie, you embarrassed me a little bit. But I just wanted to say that I was at that first meeting of Respond to Racism in July of 2017. And I have witnessed how this town, that the culture of our town is changing. People are no longer afraid to talk about race. I see it happening everywhere. And some of that, I think, is a credit to not only the work that Respond to Racism is doing, but to the trials that we are going through with COVID and, you know, so much conflict and bad news and climate change. And I think that maybe, because I thought, what would it take for that prophecy to be fulfilled, that the white brothers, I think, would look to the Lakota people for leadership? Is that you read? You read that prophecy.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I think we are going through what it takes, because there a lot of humility has to be gained in order for us to be able to do that. And I think it's happening. So as difficult as these times are, I feel very hopeful about the future and very honored and privileged to be able to participate in this process through this work.
Thank you, May. Yeah, this community is amazing. Bruce?
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. You can hear me, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I looked at your Lakota mapping.
Yes.
And when I was in college, one of the things I studied was urban planning. And that mapping actually tells the story of a lot of cities throughout the United States, the way that neighborhoods started out and progressively decreased in size. That concept basically still is in existence today. Look at Portland, look at a lot of cities, and you can just overlay it. It tells a story.
Wow. Wow. Very interesting. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, I see here too, Jeremy Watson has mentioned, have you created any pieces specific to Lake Oswego and our history and the medicine that we need? Well, that's really interesting. Very interesting. I'll have to put that out to my muses. Yeah, this state and this town, you know, I mean, that's what's so interesting about this group, Respond to Racism, in this state and this town, and that work is being done here is, you can just, if it can be done here, it can be done anywhere. And so I think it's almost more important, the work that's done here, than the work that's done in the South or somewhere else in the country. But I'll have to really think about that. That's an inspiring call to action for me personally. Thank you. I don't know if you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. Connie. You're muted, Connie.
We were talking about the history of the Statue of Liberty, and France gave it to us, but we couldn't remember the words at the bottom of it.
Yes, that's a poem. Someone here, it's not coming to the top of my mind who the author is.
Yeah, I couldn't remember.
Give me you're tired, you're poor, you're masses. That poem was written as a way to raise money for the Statue of Liberty. I believe it was something like 10 years after it was erected, and it was a poem, tying the Statue of Liberty to immigration and that plaque was put there, but that was part of the rewriting of the history of the statue.
Of the statue, right? But I couldn't remember the original stuff. And then for the Native American chief, you're probably too young, but in the 60s and 70s, there was an advertisement on television, and the Indian chief looked exactly like your picture, and people were littering, and a tear would roll down his face. Does any of the old people remember that? Yeah. And it was a thing saying, respect the earth, and I thought that's what you were getting back to, in that people are now realizing that through global warming and all of this, that to protect the earth and to take care of it, it's really important, because otherwise you can't live here.
Yes. Yes.
So I was thinking a lot with that, and yeah, I just I think that was the main thing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the Native peoples really are the true stewards of this land, and their knowledge, even like controlled burnings, and I mean, so much of the knowledge of the land. In fact, they call it rematriation of the land. I think we will, we're starting to see this, but the more and more that we return to that knowledge and center that experience and empower that voice, the more we will solve these issues that we're facing as a nation. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And with all the global warming and everybody getting, saying that we have to take care of the earth, I was telling my husband the other day, it's amazing that nobody's saying they told us so. Nobody's referring back to the Native American people who were trying to teach that lesson, and so I really liked your piece.
Oh, thank you. Yes, and posted here in the chat, the poem is called The New Colossus by Emma Lazarus.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Thank you. Kim.
Yes, so I really love the way so much of your work has text, and then with the images overlaid on the text. I think that's really powerful, the way you do that. And when someone was asking about whether any of your work has ever been specific to Lake Oswego, what leapt into my mind was restrictive covenants, and how so many of the deeds on the homes in Lake Oswego, even still to this day, have this wording about who can own property in this town. And so I don't know if that's just something to think about, how that might be used in some future work of art.
I'm taking notes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yes.
I'm Jane, not Jan, but I'm going to say that I am a person who's typically drawn to words. So I echo the last comments that you double whammied me with words and visual images. I won't forget these. And I'm so grateful to you for
thank you.
Sending them to us, sharing them with us, and to make them part of it. A public domain is astounding. So
thank you. Thank you. By the way, I can post my website here. You can download. So all of the black and white portraits, and then the police portraits are all in the public domain, and you can get those on my website. Thank you. That's this is why I do the work. So I'm so grateful that it touched you. Thank you. Carrie.
Hi, thank you so much. This is my first time with the group. I'm new to Lake Oswego relatively. And when Kim was just or the person before Kim was talking about the restrictive covenants and so on, as somebody new, it really stood out to me. But the point that I want to be sure I get across before we close and before I let you go is how powerful it is for me that you are looking for the good medicine, that you are looking for the healing, and that you are looking for something that's going to draw it together. I come from a family of colonizers with some echoes of that still in New Mexico, missionaries. And I've been estranged from my family around their celebrations of that I can't in good conscience participate. And I'm a writer and I paint as well. And every attempt I've made so far has been reactive and polarizing and personal in the wrong way. Personal in the wrong way that needs to be cleansed and lifted and worked through and brought to something else. And I have never yet seen this happen with someone else's work, not in this way, not, because art is what everything else isn't. And so you've made this with what you are. So thank you. It's such, I can't even put words to how strong of a lesson this is for me, because now I can go back to that work and do it some justice.
Wow.
So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's so meaningful. Thank you so much. Well, you know, what's interesting is, and I really hope we can democratize art, all forms of art, because I think it really should be a tool that everyone can use. And it is one of the greatest ways to facilitate your own healing. And like you said, it's a process. So oftentimes healing and grieving starts with anger, and it's something that we need to actually bear witness to. And if we don't have spaces for that anger to come out, we can't lance the wound, And so there is a place for that, and there's a role for that, and we need people who can bear witness to that. And really, I think it's important to acknowledge that's a really critical part of healing, is to be able to have somebody witness your pain and witness your anger. At the same time, it can be triggering for other people. So a lot of times it can be its own weapon then that then unintentionally makes the problem worse.
Right.
But in working through it and taking that, to the next stage and the next stage, and having a litmus test of like, does this heal me? Sometimes it's the pain still comes through it. Like I have a hard time with some of those pieces, like the Nat Turner piece. It's really hard I can't present that one without choking up. And a lot of times I wonder, is this appropriate? Because, it's hard. This stuff is really hard. But, at the same time that he deserves to be remembered as the hero that he was, really, in the face of that inhumanity, recognizing his humanity and standing up for justice. And so those stories have to be told. But I'm really grateful for your share, and I can't wait to see your art. I can't wait to see your art.
I will just say this, when you were talking about, triggering, I think in so many ways, my reaction has been to the people in my family and others like them. And that saying about afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted. And I need to find that balance, where I'm not, where my, we used to say in church, to convict them in the sense of like, to speak truth to power, where that comes from love rather than from anything less than that. So thank you. Thank you so much.
And I think what a powerful story you even just shared with us here of your background and the environment that you grew up in and the messages that you've heard and the alchemy you can perform on that.
That's it, exactly. That's the word. I mean, I've had in my mind for like 8 to 10 to even longer years of like, what kind of alchemy can I perform with my being and to make some kind of offering of reparation?
Wow.
In this person, in this lineage, how can I bathe my lineage in healing holy water?
Amazing. So 6 months from now, you'll be on the calendar to share your work.
I'm on it. I'm in it. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I see some young people, some youth here. I don't know if you have anything you'd like to share, but I'm so inspired by this younger generation that seems to really understand these issues at such a visceral level. I don't want to put you on the spot, but if any of you youth have anything to share with us, we'd love to hear.
They might have gone to their books. There's lots of homework tonight.
Yes. Busy time. Well, thank you so much. It's really great, great privilege for me to be able to share this in my own town of Lake Oswego. Amazing call to action to think about how I might, tell this story of Lake Oswego through my art. I will definitely take that to heart and get my muses working on that. So I get inspired. Really, thank you.
Thank you, Arya. Willie, it's your turn again. You're muted.
Okay, I'm back. It's time for poll. John, you want to put it up? Poll 3. Did you learn something new this evening? Did you hear a different perspective? And can you commit to an action proposed tonight?
May I suggest that an action is find an artistic or creative expression, whether it's a poem or a drawing or something that can be a healing balm for you in this work. I think everyone should have their hand at the arts.
Okay. Anything else? We're all finished there. Terry, you're on.
Okay.
Willie, you got some snazzy fingernail polish on.
Yeah, let's see that.
I was just noticing that.
I was wondering, when did you get your nails done, Willie? Come on now.
Didn't. I polished them last night. I said, I'm going to do blue nails. My toenails are blue too.
Woohoo!
Go, Willie. Woohoo!
Okay.
Just so you know, we're paying attention, Willie.
Okay, Terry, you're up.
Okay, so the last question in that poll was whether you would commit to taking an action. And hopefully you said yes, even if you weren't sure what that might be. I'm going to give you some ideas. And this came out in your email, but I just wanted to hone in on a few things. We aren't going to be having a community meeting in January, but we will be sending around a survey that we would like you to participate in and get some feedback from you. So watch your email for that. And also watch your email because Respond to Racism will be hosting a workshop that we hope that many of you will participate in. Bruce Poinsett will be leading it, and we will be learning about repurposing our privilege, a strategy session. And we'll offer it 2 different times. It'll be the same workshop, so hopefully one of the 2 days will work for you. So watch your email for that. Then on Thursday, December 9th at 6:30, the Middle Housing Community Forum is going to be presenting recommendations to the city on implementing middle housing, which relates to one of the bills that was passed by the legislature. And we can participate in that meeting virtually. So if you are interested in that, if you are interested in having more housing, especially available housing in Lake Oswego, available is kind of an odd word to use, I guess. But anyway, please participate and register first so that you can get the link to the Zoom meeting. And there'll be a second one scheduled sometime in February, but check the email that you got from us. Then the City of Lake Oswego is conducting a survey to better understand the needs of Lake Oswego residents and to prioritize the services and help guide the City Council on policy issues. And we would love it if all of you, I think there's 40 some people on, if you would participate in this survey and do it sooner rather than later, because I believe that this survey closes when a certain number of participants have taken the survey. So this isn't one you should sort of put on the back burner and do later. If you can try and do it this week, that would be great. It takes you to a link of a third-party survey company that's doing it. So when you get to the city website, it'll take you to a link. And if you could answer all the questions, that would be great. Mark your calendar for December 19th. We will have another silent walk at the same location there at the fountain on the corner of Evergreen and First, rain or shine. And we are partnering with the city and LO for Love, of course, to have a silent walk on MLK Day, which will be January 16th. I'm not 100% sure of the time yet, but probably 3 p.m. But watch your emails for that, and we'll post it on all our social media sites as well. The Public Arts Committee, since we're talking about art tonight, the Lake Oswego Public Arts Committee is appointed to develop and maintain the city's public art collection, and they are seeking 2 new members and an alternate member. So the link to the application form is in your email. And last thing, well, second to the last thing. The City Council is preparing for its annual goal-setting retreat, and it would like to hear from the community as they prepare. And if you would like to provide input, there's a link to that in your email. And if you would like to attend the goal-setting retreat in person, you can register for that, and that's in your email as well. And the retreat will be on January 22nd, and it's an all-day event. And it's very interesting if you're not familiar with how the City Council establishes its goals, it's an interesting process. There's a lot of conversation and dialogue, and they definitely weigh the input from the community, so that's important. And the Mandela Exhibit is at OMSI, and that runs through February 13th, and I hear it's fabulous, and I need to get my tickets. That's it. Thanks, Willie.
Okay, thank you so much, Terry. And with that, I guess I'm going to say good night, or is there something else I forgot?
Happy holidays, everybody.
Willie,
Happy holidays and be
Holidays.
safe.
Don't miss the Mandela exhibit. Don't miss it.
It's great.
It's fabulous.
Willie, do you want to say something to Arya?
I do. I
Yes.
did until my little brain went south. So I want to thank her, first of all. But thank her. Thank you, Arya. Oh my goodness. This was wonderful, wonderful. And I'm so glad that people are leaving with something to think about and look at art. And I'm sure they're going to be trying to get your art. You put your, did you put her, did she, Arya, did you put your
Yes,
contact information?
I did. Yes.
Okay. And so, if not, we know where to find you. We can get to you. So you can't hide. She's right here in the city, and we want to see more of her. And I'd love to see your work in the city.
That would be amazing.
I would love to see your work in the city. You're a fantastic artist, and
Thank you.
I the work. Okay, one more thing.
Yeah, we have 2 art galleries now.
One more thing. A good assignment for you is to find out wherever you live, whose land are you living on? I started to say something, but just going back and to find and to look, I guess I could say the LOUCC has worked on it. It was a long problem, reckoning with race, a long project, but maybe we could have them come and present something about their program of going back and looking to find out whose land that you were on, who was here. We do the land acknowledgements, and they sound like they're just in words. But if you want to acknowledge the land, I don't mean the person you bought the house from or the apartment that you live in. Just going back, who was here first? And that would be an interesting job for you. So if you find out, let us know, because we'll share the news. Okay.
One last word. Do not miss Bruce Poinset's Repurposing Your Privilege, a very good workshop.
Can I say, yes, people who have privilege, if I can just put it that way, how to, yes, repurpose your privilege.
It was excellent.
And I've heard that it's a good place.
It's great.
I don't have privilege, so I don't know about it. I'm not one of them. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Have a great rest of the year. If you have holidays you're celebrating or families, that's fine. Just have it, enjoy it. And no meeting in January, but you will have homework to do in January. So we will be back in person. Oh, not in person. I wish. We'll be back virtually in February. So Happy New Year to all of you. And thank you for your ongoing support. Thank you for all the people who made this possible. And thank you again, May, for introducing us to your daughter. And thank you, Arya. Okay, is that all?